Lots of stuff in the news today. I want to ask you a question. Have any of you heard of a Baptist preacher getting into a car and driving it into a crowd of people, claiming that the Baptists have been taken advantage of? I don't believe I ever recorded anything like that in the history of America. But it's happening now more and more and more as people who claim to be Muslims, like that Somali who said that Islam was being discriminated against in America, so he takes a car and drives it smack into a group of innocent bystanders and maybe kills one or two and certainly injures a number of others. And he's here. He's come from Somalia. And you wonder, why do we have to get exposed to that kind of terror in our land? Well, there are many sleeper cells here in America, and ISIS says they've got them planted all over the country, so we can expect more. But while that's happening, the drama continues. As Stein has got this quixotic quest of, I don't know what she's trying to do except raise money. She's raised a ton of money. Looks like Pennsylvania, she's late in getting that thing in, so there's no possibility of overturning the election. So she's aiming at Wisconsin and Michigan. And those poor people out there must say, are you serious? Do you really think you're going to get anything? The answer is absolutely nothing. But George Soros, I don't know what it is about him, but he loves to spend money to leftist causes, and he's backing this thing. He's putting up a lot of money. And I think Jill Stein has raised about $6.5 million to get a recount. Whew, it's just awful. Well, while that's going on, the president continues doing his job with the president-elect. It looks like President-elect Donald Trump will take dead aim at Obamacare with a new cabinet appointment. Congressman Tom Price of Georgia. He's head of the House Budget Committee, and he's a surgeon, and he has a plan to repeal and replace the health care law.
Well, Trump is also still interviewing possible choices for Secretary of State, including former General David Petraeus and Mitt Romney, as well as others. Dale Hurd has the story.
It's a strong sign that Obamacare's days could be numbered, at least in its present form. President-elect Donald Trump's nominee for Secretary of Health and Human Services, Georgia Congressman Tom Price, has been one of the staunchest opponents of the president's health care law on Capitol Hill. Price has said Obamacare violates every principle in health care. Price even drafted legislation to repeal it. His plan includes measures to cut the cost of health care and increase the choices patients would have, using tax credits for health insurance and health savings accounts. Trump advisor Newt Gingrich tweeted his approval, calling Price the right leader to help Congress replace Obamacare. The president-elect also met with one of his favorite military leaders at Trump Tower, retired General David Petraeus, one of the contenders for Secretary of State.
The meeting went very well. Was with him for about an hour. He basically walked us around the world, showed a great grasp of a variety of the challenges that are out there and some of the opportunities as well.
The meeting came as Trump's senior advisor Kellyanne Conway made public comments criticizing another candidate for Secretary of State, former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney, once one of Trump's toughest critics.
Donald Trump is a phony, a fraud.
Conway says Trump's supporters would feel betrayed if Romney gets the job.
There was the Never Trump movement, and then there was Governor Mitt Romney. He went out of his way to hurt Donald Trump. I don't think a cost of admission for party unity has to be the Secretary of State position.
Others on Team Trump are pushing for longtime loyalist Rudy Giuliani, but Vice President-elect Mike Pence and others are reportedly behind Romney. Pence also told reporters to get ready for a lot more announcements of cabinet appointments.
It's going to be a busy week. Get ready.
Trump still has several important positions to name, including the key posts of Secretary of Defense and Treasury. And despite the controversy over who he'll pick for state, Trump's transition is still moving faster than previous administrations. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Something else about Mitt Romney, he's a very wonderful man. In addition to being the bishop, the Mormon bishop of New England, he was the author of a Massachusetts health care law that was the progenitor, if you will, of Obamacare. So if people don't like Obamacare, they recognize its grandfather was the Massachusetts health care law that was put into law by none other than Mitt Romney. So I don't know if the Trump people are taking that into consideration, as well as some of the insults that were leveled at him. But you take a big man. The thought was that when Lincoln had his cabinet, he had a team of rivals, but the rivals were aiming at each other. None of them had attacked the president per se before they got in his cabinet. They were attacking each other, so it was a team of rivals, and they balanced each other out. But this is a little different. The man, vicious attacks against Donald Trump. Well, in other news, students are heading back to class at Ohio State University in Columbus after what looks like another deadly lone wolf terrorist attack took place and injured a number of people with an automobile and then a butcher knife.
Pat, that's right. All 11 of the people hurt in the attack Monday, fortunately, are expected to recover. The attacker has been identified as a Somali immigrant named Abdul Razak Ali Artan. He was a student at Ohio State, and reports indicate he was a devout Muslim who was angry about the way Muslims were being treated. The attack was similar to an ISIS terror attack in France. In this case, the attacker drove his car into pedestrians onto a curb on campus and then began slashing people with a knife.
A suspect drove a vehicle over the curb, West 19th, west of College Avenue, struck pedestrians. He exited the vehicle and used a butcher knife to start cutting pedestrians.
There were multiple injuries related to lacerations or cuts, most likely, as Chief said, from the stab wounds from the butcher knife.
Certainly that authorities need to treat this as a potential terrorist attack.
Investigators are looking into a recent Facebook rant Artan posted. It said, "If you want us Muslims to stop carrying lone wolf attacks, then make peace. We will not let you sleep unless you give peace to the Muslims." A campus police officer killed Artan during the attack, and Pat, that officer being hailed a hero.
We have available to us a booklet that is extraordinarily well done. It's researched, carefully researched by people who are experts on Islam, who speak Arabic and know what the Quran has to say. And this booklet is called Islam, Religion of Peace or War. And people say, I remember George Bush said it's a religion of peace. Baloney. Islam does not mean peace. It means submission. And this Somali said, you first got to be nice to Muslims. Well, who are causing the problems? The United States didn't start ISIS. It didn't start some of the other atrocities that are being done in the name of Islam. Islam, Religion of Peace or War. You need to get, we'll give this to you free, by the way, if you want it. It's a wonderful book, beautifully illustrated and beautifully written. It's available if you just call 1-800-700-7000 Islam. Learn what it is. You know, they have taken every reference of Islam and Islamic terrorists out of the training manual of the FBI. 1,000 pages were removed. The government of Obama does not want us to know who the enemies are, and they don't dare use the term Islamic terrorist. But that's who we're facing, and if we don't identify the enemy, in World War II, we identified the fact that the Nazis were our enemies, and that we were facing a worldwide dictatorship under Hitler, Mussolini, etc. And then we faced communism, and we identified that, but now we are not allowed. I'm sure under the Trump administration, they will once again identify who our enemies are, and they'll train our defenders in how to protect themselves against these people. But this is who we're dealing with, and so you don't want to, I'm sure there are many peaceful Muslims, God bless every one of them, but there is a radical fringe that seems to have sway throughout the Muslim world, and that's what's causing the problem. John?
Pat, turning overseas, the fires that ravaged Israel over the past week and a half have been some of the worst in its history. While Israeli firefighters struggle to bring the flames under control, volunteer firefighters from the U.S. helped during the crisis. Chris Mitchell brings us that story.
4 major fires swept throughout Israel. They were dangerous and difficult.
They were bad. They were bad. I've been on some wildland forest fires back in the States. And they were just as bad as those.
If you stand in front of it, it's going to burn right over you. If you try to run behind it, you can't catch up to it.
With Israeli firefighters stretched to their limit on Thanksgiving Day, the call went out to U.S. firefighters to help.
Amazing how all the American people stood behind Israel when we made the call.
Probably within 6 hours, we had 39 people ready to go.
When they arrived, they deployed throughout the country.
Kind of hit the ground running. As soon as we got here, we started going on calls right away. We were able to help out with some wildland fires, with some structure apartment fires.
They came as part of a program called EVP, Emergency Volunteer Project.
The goal of the project is to find the supporters of Israel that want to have their boots on the ground in Israel during crisis.
Some came during big moments in their lives.
Just before I came, I proposed to my girlfriend, so she is now my fiance, Kathleen Humphreys, and we've been doing wedding planning over the phone.
For Israeli firefighters, it meant a lot to see so many come.
It always makes a good feeling for us to know that someone overseas care about us and thinking about us, prepared to come and help us.
EVP volunteers also responded during the 2014 war with Hamas. It's a call firefighters answer when their brothers call.
The best way to describe it is a brotherhood. Just like they are your family at home, this is my family at work. And we keep in contact even when we're not in Israel.
Many of the U.S. firemen are Christians and feel a call to stand with Israel.
From the very beginning, I believe that God commands us to stand by them, that we're to be an advocate for Israel, we're to love them. My first trip here, I was given a prophetic word on Isaiah 40, comfort my people. So it means everything to be able to be a part of their lives.
It's a relationship that's expected to keep growing.
This is not going to stop. We love being here. They love having us here.
It's truly an honor for me to come here and be with the guys here in the fire station.
When we called our friends and we asked for their help, they came. And they came big time.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thanks, Chris. Well, back here in Washington, President Obama is in the last weeks of his presidency, but federal agencies are pushing for a flurry of executive orders to pass before he leaves office. According to Politico, this laundry list of midnight regulations covers everything from jobs to environmental issues. Meanwhile, Republican leaders are already working to block these regulations. House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy saying, "Please be aware that we will work with our colleagues to ensure that Congress scrutinizes your actions and, if appropriate, overturns them." President-elect Trump has also promised to block the regulations. Well, Washington has piled up trillions of dollars of debt, but federal spending isn't slowing down. As Paul Strand reports, one senator has documented a list of hundreds of projects that he says wasted $250 billion taxpayer dollars.
Put every one of these things into place.
This is the second year Oklahoma Senator James Lankford has put out federal fumbles, a big spotlight on outrageous cases of federal overspending, such as
things like the NIH did a study of about $2 million to study how children perceive food, including testing to see when food is sneezed on, if 5-year-olds will still eat the food. Now, I think we could have answered that question for less than $2 million.
Another maddening example, more than $500,000 digging up Icelandic church cemeteries.
Doing grave digging in Iceland, which we have paid for recently, to be able to study the cultures in the 8th century to the 12th century in Iceland. I'm not sure what the connection to the American economy is to that and how that helps us long term to do grave digging in Iceland, but that's one of the things that we paid for.
Lankford points out all this overspending adds up to a federal debt of almost $20 trillion. You may think that mega-large debt doesn't have anything to do with you, but if you're the average American household, your family owes $165,000 of that debt. Yes, $165,000. And you thought your credit card debt was bad. By the way, Lankford practices what he preaches about cost-cutting, running his Senate office way below the budget allotted him. In fact, the last couple of years, he and his office have handed back $230,000 to the U.S. Treasury each year. Paul Strand, CBN News, Capitol Hill.
Here are a few more examples of government waste from Lankford's report. $1 billion from a Palestinian hospital or infrastructure projects, some of which are unusable, and more than $2 million to investigate if climate change has had an impact on the panda population in China. Pat?
You know, the thing of it is, they're all buddies up there, And one buddy says, look, I've got some friends out there that are doing this study. How about voting for it? The guy says, okay, and what's your project? And he said, well, I've got something about pandas in China that a friend of mine is working on at the university. How about going for that? And it's not their money. But this concept of just spending, and it's all borrowed. Every penny they're spending is borrowed now. They're borrowing against the future generations. And for one generation to put the success of its children and grandchildren to hock up to $20 trillion is absolutely unconscionable. It is immoral, it is wrong, and yet the people in Congress seem to have no conception of saying no. All they've got to do is say, no, we can't afford that. No, we can't afford that. No, it's so easy to do. No, I haven't got that kind of money. No, I can't afford it. And they just say no. Nancy Reagan was talking about drugs, I think, but she said, just say no. But if Congress would just learn that, just say no. Terry, isn't it awful?
Well, you marvel that the things that have nothing to do with the United States in any way, shape, or form get this kind of money.
Even if it did, we can't afford all these nonsense projects. We just can't do it. And the waste is appalling in every aspect of what the government does. It is overspending, and people don't seem to care, you know. I remember watching FEMA. They bought all these trailers down in New Orleans.
I remember that too.
And they were there in the mud, and nobody could use them.
Sat. No one used them.
Nobody used them, and there was something wrong with them. They couldn't hook up properly, but there's always something. And well, it's not my money, and so let's sign off on it. Well, we need people who think it is their money, and they need to be in charge of our government.